Let's start with a big question. What happens when a country forgets its own story? Today, we're going to explore this idea that many of America's current struggles aren't actually new, but that they might stem from what some are calling a crisis of inheritance. All right, let's jump right in. For years now, there's been this feeling, right? This persistent sense that something really vital in American life has started to weaken, that the confidence and unity that once felt so solid are beginning to crack. And hey, this isn't just some vague feeling people have. The data actually backs it up. For the better part of a decade, we've seen a real nosedive in national confidence and cultural cohesion, and maybe most importantly, in our trust for our core institutions. So what's going on? Naturally, we point to the usual suspects: economic disruption, globalization, the power of tech elites. But what if those aren't the root cause at all? What if they're just the symptoms of a much, much deeper problem? This is where the source material we're digging into today introduces this powerful idea, a crisis of inheritance. The basic concept is that a nation is kind of like a building. It stands on a foundation of ideas, of history. And this crisis? It's the slow, dangerous process of forgetting that foundation even exists. It's like a national amnesia. Okay, so if we've forgotten our inheritance, what exactly is it that we've lost? To answer that, we've got to go back in time, and I mean way before 1776, to trace the ideas that actually built the Republic in the first place. Now this right here, this shatters a really common myth. The idea that the American founding was created ex nihilo, out of thin air, during the Enlightenment. The truth is, the founders weren't just inventors, they were inheritors. They were more like master weavers, skillfully bringing together these incredible threads of thought that had been developing for thousands of years. And this timeline, wow, it really shows you just how deep those roots go. We're about to trace this inheritance all the way from the American founding, back through the Reformation and the Christian tradition, and even further back to the political ideas of the ancient Hebraic Republic. And this brings us to another really cool idea: civilizational synthesis. See, the American system isn't the product of just one single idea. It's a unique fusion, a blend of four completely distinct historical traditions. And that synthesis is what makes it both so strong and maybe so fragile. Let's start with that first thread, the Hebraic tradition. This gave us the revolutionary idea of a covenant, a society bound together by mutual promises. But the real kicker was the concept that a higher law stands above any ruler. Think about that for a second. The king didn't make the law made the king. That's a game changer. The second thread comes from the Christian tradition, and it gave us a very realistic view of human nature. It's a fascinating paradox. Humans are created with immense dignity and worth, but at the same time, we're also deeply flawed and prone to corruption. And that's exactly why checks on power aren't just a good idea, they're an absolute necessity. Next up, you've got the Reformation. This tradition just supercharged the importance of the individual conscience. It created a moral, even a theological basis for resisting tyranny. It argued that when a ruler violates that higher law, resistance isn't just a right, it could actually be a duty. That's a radical step toward limited government. And the final thread is the Republican tradition. If the other traditions gave us the moral why of a free society, this one provided the practical how. It's the nuts and bolts, the institutional machinery of representation, the rule of law, and that brilliant architecture of a balance of powers. So you have these four powerful streams of thought, all flowing through history. The true genius of the founders was to figure out how to channel all of them into a single coherent system. So how'd they pull it off? This is where it all clicks. The Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, they're not just some dusty old documents. It's better to think of them as the architectural blueprints for a whole new kind of political structure, one designed specifically to house and protect this entire inherited worldview. This slide is a great way to visualize the whole construction process. You start with the Hebraic foundation of a covenant, then you add the Christian understanding of human nature, you reinforce it with the Reformation's defense of conscience, and then you build the actual Republican structures right on top. The founding was that moment when all these layers were fused together into a new revolutionary constitutional order. So when you boil this entire 3,000-year history down, what are the essential pillars holding the whole thing up? Well, the source material we're looking at identifies four key pillars. And here they are. First, law, supreme over everyone, from the president to the average citizen. Second, liberty, which is not the license to do whatever you want, but the structured freedom to do what you ought to do. Third, covenant, that powerful idea that we're all in this together, bound by mutual responsibility. And finally, restraint, the entire system of checks and balances, born from that hard-won wisdom that power always, always corrupts. And this brings us right back to where we started, this so-called crisis of inheritance. If these are the foundations, what are the real consequences of forgetting they're even there? This quote just nails the central argument, doesn't it? Preserving a free society is a lot like tending an orchard. The things we value, liberty, justice, stability, that's the fruit. But fruit doesn't just magically appear. It grows from these deep moral and historical roots. If we sever the roots, the fruit will inevitably wither and die. So what's the path forward? Well, according to this analysis, it's not about inventing some brand new political system from scratch. The way forward is actually an act of memory. It's about recovering and re-engaging with this idea of covenantal constitutionalism, a system where our rights and freedoms are balanced by our duties to each other, all under a higher law. Which leaves us with this final, urgent question. And this isn't just about history, this is about the future. Can any republic, this one or any other, truly survive if it becomes a stranger to its own story? Something to think about.